Michael Chekhov's autobiography, The Path of the Actor, was published in Russia in 1928. In 2005, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of his passing, an abridged English translation was published by Routledge. My initial attempts to perform took their course, as always happens in such cases, within domestic surroundings. My mother and nanny were my constant audience, and they were also the characters whom I portrayed in all kinds of possible and impossible situations. My father was never particularly interested in my productions, although I often portrayed him too. The question of my becoming a future actor did not arise in our family for a long time. As for myself, when choosing my future profession in the way children usually do, I dreamed of being a fireman or a doctor, and I never even thought about becoming an actor. The fireman's job probably attracted me because my father was an amateur fireman. Above his bed, there was a special telephone for informing him of fires, and day or night, he would often go out and fight them. Gradually, the circle of my audience widened. I put on performances on the balcony, where I read stories and acted scenes from Dickens, incorporating into them episodes of my own making. I finally succeeded in persuading one of the members of the local amateur dramatic circle to admit me to their club stage. I was absolutely delighted. I was usually given the roles of various vaudeville old men. It made no difference to me whether I was rehearsing or performing for the public, because when I went out on the stage, I completely forgot about myself and my surroundings, and I gave myself up to that elemental feeling which has accompanied me as an underlying mood on the stage, not only in my childhood years, but also in the later period of my life, until the time when I experienced my inner crisis and my disillusionment with the theatre. What I lost in the period of my inner crisis was a sense, and even an intuitive feeling, of the whole. It was because of this sense of the whole that it never occurred to me that a part in a play or a story, or simply an impersonation of someone, might not actually come off. Doubts of this kind were unknown to me. When I was about to play a part, or as happened in my childhood, throw out a more or less effective joke, I was strongly gripped by this feeling of the whole that was to come, and with full confidence in it, I began, without the slightest hesitation, to carry out whatever it was that was occupying my attention at the time. Out of this whole, the details emerged of their own accord, and appeared objectively before me. I never invented the details, and I was always merely an observer of what came to light out of the sense of the whole. I can only compare it with the seed of a plant, in which the entire future of the plant is contained in so wonderful a way. How often it happens that actors who have this intuitive feeling of the future before they begin their work do not have sufficient courage to trust it and patiently wait for it. This feeling of the whole carried me like a mighty wave through all the difficulties and dangers of the actor's path. It accompanied me through drama school and beyond. In August 1907, Chekhov entered the Suvorin Drama School in St. Petersburg, where, at the age of 16, he was the youngest student. This school belonged to the Suvorin Theatre. The theatre was also known as the Petersburg Mali Theatre, though its official name was the Theatre of the Society for Literature and Art. Chekhov graduated from the Suvorin Drama School in May 1910 with a diploma wherein his specialization as an actor was described as innately very gifted, revealing particular success in comic and character roles. Michael Chekhov wrote, "My time at drama school was spent in a semi-conscious state. I contemplated and acted with great enthusiasm, but I didn't study anything. The theoretical subjects, The history of the arts, the history of the theatre, phonetics, and so forth were alien to me, and I got through the examinations only with prompts and cribs. The lessons in voice production irritated me and made me laugh. My 3 years at drama school swept past me like a dream. I was cheerful and brave only when I was performing something, but I was almost constantly performing something, and my basic mood was one of cheerfulness. I literally couldn't say a single word in a straightforward way. Sometimes entire days flowed by for me like an uninterrupted performance. Much later in my development, and after I had joined the Moscow Art Theatre, Konstantin Stanislavski explained to me how bad and harmful it is for an actor to be continually putting on a show for almost the whole day. When I finished drama school, I joined the Suvorin Theatre, where I stayed for a year and a half. Boris Glagolin took a great interest in me, and in the first year I was given the part of Tsar Fyodor, along with a number of other roles. The first time my father took any notice of me as an actor was following a performance of Tsar Fyodor. After the play, he praised and even kissed me. The principal director of the theatre at that time was Abatov. His capacity for work was staggering. One of his tasks was the creation of a cycle of historical plays. Nicholas II wanted to familiarize himself with this cycle, and a whole series of performances was organized in Tsarskoye Selo. One of the rooms in the palace was turned into a stage on which the plays were performed. I remember how a considerable amount of time was spent on teaching us, the presenters of the cycle, how to behave at the palace. There were so many of these rules that it was completely impossible to remember them. We were intimidated, confused, and very anxious. All the rules and exhortations that we received from a general who had come especially for this purpose were forgotten right at the moment when they were most necessary, when the Tsar himself appeared in order to converse with us after the performance. One young actress who was making a curtsy sat on the keys of the piano. An actor who had not heard a question which had been addressed to him by one of the members of the royal family impetuously came out with the cry, "What did you say?" thus breaking the silence reigning in the room. While I responded to the Tsar's question, "How do you stick on your nose?" by quickly taking it off and almost shouting, "Just like this, Your Majesty!" An awkward moment ensued. But the Tsar did not get angry, and he asked me if I wanted to join the Imperial Theatre. I couldn't answer properly, and afterwards my colleagues frequently rebuked me for this. Nicholas stretched out his hand to me in a white glove, and I shook it, staining it with the sticky resin which I had removed from my nose. For me, the hours that I spent on stage were like balm to my soul. For a time, I forgot my oppressive thoughts, and I immersed myself in a state of creativity which wholly took hold of me. On one occasion, my oversensitive nervous condition led to an unexpected result. This was on a tour which the Suvorin Theatre was making. As a performance in one of the towns was drawing to a close, a rumour spread among the actors that a building next to the theatre was on fire. I was playing the part of a Chinaman. When I had finished my part, I left the stage and saw that the building opposite the theatre was indeed ablaze. I grew frightened and ran off down the street in the direction of the station. I was running in my Chinaman's costume and makeup, with my pigtail dangling behind me. The theatre wardrobe master had me in hot pursuit. "Mr. Chekhov," he shouted, "let me at least have the trousers." I did not stop and went on running. At last, the wardrobe master began to catch up with me. Then I suddenly stopped, took off my wide Chinaman's trousers, and, leaving them where they fell, I carried on running. Boris Glagolin's mastery as an actor and director made a profound impression on me. When I saw him in the role of Klestakov, I experienced a kind of revelation. It became clear to me that Glagolin played Klestakov not like everyone else, although I had actually never seen anyone else in this role before Glagolin. This feeling of not like everyone else arose in me without having any comparisons and analogies, but directly from Glagolin's acting. The unusual freedom and originality of his creativity in this role astonished me, and I was not wrong. No one played Klestakov in the way Glagolin did. When I subsequently came to play this part, I recognized in myself Glagolin's influence. In Part 3, we will look in depth at two of Michael Chekhov's most extraordinary performances. The title role of Eric XIV by Strindberg in a production directed by Evgeny Vakhtangov for the First Studio in 1921, and the role of Klestakov in a production of The Government Inspector by Gogol, directed in the same year by Konstantin Stanislavski for the Moscow Art Theatre.